My name is Hermann Meyer. I am one of the owners and responsible for all the sales of the DaVinci Künstler Pinselfabrik Defet GmbH, which is our official name. DaVinci Artist Brush Factory here in Nuremberg, Germany, where we make and produce and manufacture all our brushes.
If I can ask you to sort of say a quick hello and introduce yourself, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
All right. So, hello and a very good morning from Nuremberg, Germany. My name is Hermann Meyer. I am one of the owners and responsible for all the sales of the DaVinci Künstler Pinselfabrik Defet GmbH, which is our official name. DaVinci Artist Brush Factory here in Nuremberg, Germany, where we make and produce and manufacture all our brushes. It's a family company. We are about 130 people working in our company, about 100 people making brushes, about 30 people administrating brushes, if you want to put it like that. And so we are one of the last real manufacturers in Europe. That means we are making all our brushes in our factory. We are not a handle producer. We are not a ferrule producer. We are brush producers. That means we make the brush heads out of the materials we buy. We dress the hair ourselves. We mix the fibers ourselves. So we are really knowing exactly what is inside our brushes. And we make brushes from A, like artist brushes, to Z, like, I don't know a name now for that, but really for many, many purposes where people look for quality brushes. That we have, like many brush companies, the real Coca-Cola secret is in the material, how are the fibers mixed together, what lengths are you mixing together, what kind of hair, how is the hair prepared. These are all the real differences besides the brush making processes, which divide a quality brush from a normal brush, if you want to put it like that.
Do you mind if I ask how you got started making brushes? It's an interesting route to go down. How did it all start?
Yeah, I read an ad in a German magazine that somebody who was in the drawing industry is looking for a junior partner. I was 25. I just finished my marketing and economics studies, and I answered, and that's where I am now since 1985.
Amazing. Absolutely. It's funny, isn't it?
My personal background, I come from a stationery and bookbinding family, and of course, I knew a little bit about stationery from when I was little, but I had no relations to brushes or to art materials like that, just to school brushes and maybe school colors or something like that.
Amazing. But since 1985, that's I was born in 1985.
That's my whole career. I have always been in brushes, and I had the option to be a partner after several years. This was clear from the very beginning, and I was coming out of a family business, and I always wanted also to work in a smaller kind of entity. So I was always very happy in this magic world of brushes.
Amazing. That's absolutely incredible. So if you were at a party and someone starts talking to you about brushes, what do you tell them to really get them fired up about brushes?
If I talk to all my friends from university and they ask me, Hermann, you are still in the brush industry after all these years? All my friends, they have been in 2, 3, or 4 different jobs. I am there now since the very beginning. Well, we have brushes you make out of 11, 12 hairs. We have brushes which are 50 centimeters wide. We make brushes for some of the most famous artists in the world, sometimes by the piece, Sometimes we do from one size, we do 100,000 brushes a year. So it's a fascinating little industry which has a very, very long history in our area. And I always enjoyed not only the product, but also the market, all the trade, which is a peculiar trade, which is very diverse, from the perfumery to the art material store to the stationery shop to the tabletop store to the specialist for tin soldiers, whatever. There is a wide variety of people you are knowing over the years, and you have the pleasure to work together with. So this has always been, very much widening my horizon.
What are the things that you make that are relevant to miniature painting, and why should people buy them?
Well, as a brush producer in Germany, I have to come always from the quality and from the tradition and from all the basics you need to produce a quality brush, which is starting from the material, from the knowledge how to dress in the beginning the natural hair, how to prepare the synthetic fibers, as I said before, how to mix the synthetic fibers, how to produce a tool which has a wonderful balance, which makes your hands not tired during working, which you can really have as the perfect thing to bring your ideas and your imagination onto the surface you want to work, whether it's paper or whether it's canvas or whether it's a figurine. Your idea has to go through your arm and hand directly onto the object. And if the hair and the brush is doing what you have in your head, then everything has been working out perfectly.
That's the idea, isn't it? That's the idea. Amazing. Thank you so much. It's just as what percentage of the market are the miniatures account for? I mean, I imagine it's a really tiny percentage in terms of
our business is, if I start like that, if you say 100%, we do about 75% related to painting and about 25% makeup brushes. And from the 75% artist brushes, I would say it's between 3 and 5% miniature brushes what we are doing.
Yeah.
Whereas it's always not easy to tell because we do a lot of small sizes, 10 zeros, 5 zeros, 3 zeros, 2 zeros. And where these all go to, we sell them mostly to our customers in the art material world. And whether they are then bought from artists or whether they are bought from miniature painters, how do I know? We are not dealing directly with the consumers. We are dealing with our trade, our dealers. So it's hard for me to say, but I guess the 3.25% is the correct answer. But it's definitely growing and quite quickly growing over the last years.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. So that 3.5% I think you mentioned before, there's 100,000 brushes a year you're making, something around that sort of number.
We're making about 6 million brushes a year.
Oh, 6 million. I couldn't have been further off then.
it's quite a big quantity. Yes.
Yeah, fine. Okay. Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, there's still massive numbers then. That's fine. So you've alluded to this already. How are brushes made? What are the sort of the basic steps before we get into maybe a bit more detail? But what are the basic steps for making a brush?
Well, I mean, if you have a the time, look at our YouTube channel where you can see.
I have, and I definitely recommend them. They're good. They're interesting.
Brush making in our area was also a profession, or is a profession. Maybe I should start with this information. There is still one school left in Germany where you can learn to be a Künstlerpinselmacher, artist brush maker. Like, with the German system, with 3 years education, You from 12 weeks, you are 8 weeks, 9 weeks, you are in the company, and 3 weeks, you are in school, and you learn 3 years, you make a final exam, and you are getting a theoretical and practical education in the school. And of course, you learn most of the practice in the company. And every year we have about 2 to 3 young people who are willing to learn this ancient profession, if you want to put it like that. And there is 6 to 8 people in Germany learning every year still to be a brush maker. It's not much. It's one of the trades which are getting, less and less done. And then after 3 years, you'll have the feeling to bring, I don't know, 0.5 grams of hair, which is prepared in the right way, tips to tips and asses to asses. Sorry for that word, but this is how we say, into the ferrule to shape it correctly, to make it to a nice point or a nice painting edge, to glue it perfectly so that also the glue is not hurt from any cleaning devices, to put on a handle correctly, and so on and so on and so on. So if you really want to say, or if you look at our top quality brushes, the Series 70, 76, and Maestro brush, without thinking about the ferrule making or the handle making, there are about 20 to 25 pair of hands which are needed to go through from the beginning to the end to make an artist brush.
Amazing. So if that's the qualities that make a great brush, how do you tell a bad brush? I mean, for example, you can head online to China or go to your local sort of like pound shop or Amazon or something like that and pick up any number of artist brushes, and at a very quick glance, they look quite similar. What's the difference between a brush that's made in that process as opposed to a brush that is, because when you use your brushes, you can tell they're noticeably better. But what's the differentiation that makes them so?
I think which the consumer should look at is whether the tips are cut or not. There is lots of people or many cheap brushes are cut into shape. A quality brush is always still having the natural tips, or it's difficult to talk in synthetic brushes or synthetic fiber of natural tips. But the real tips of the materials, which are then shaped by hand, because you never cut a brush into shape. You always shape it with your fingers from the back, so that the fine ends of a natural hair or of a synthetic fiber still remain untouched. This is very important, because a brush can only make a very fine point if these points of the materials are still there. Many people who make a cheap brush have tools or have other things, and then they cut it into shape, which you should never do, because you will always notice on the paper scratches or in the figurines, you will not really get to a very fine or sharp edge if these hairs are cut. So a quality brush maker is always keen that the natural ends of fibers or hairs are unhurt and really shaped by hand into the shape which is desired.
Perfect. That's really clear. That's really clear. Thank you very much. So, obviously, we've touched a little bit on synthetic fibers, and we've touched on sable brushes. Is the care of those brushes different? I mean, I always sort of am a little bit more gung ho with synthetic, as in hot water, a bit of shaping, that sort of stuff. But with synthetics, I basically treat it like I might do my own hair. So soaps and shampoos. Am I going along the right track? How do you clean synthetic and sable brushes? How do you look after them?
Well, the basic thing is that if you take the brush into your hands, that you look that there are no remnants of the color after the ferrule edge. That's the first and most important thing, is to look that you wash out every pigment, everything which is normally trying to sit here with the ferrule edge, that you really take it and you wash it out with water from the ferrule edge. That's one thing which is very important, because if these pigments or this color is getting dry at the ferrule edge and you press the next time, the fiber will not break, the natural hair will break, but it will always be destroying your clothes, your spring of the brush. This is number one. And then, of course, it is also very important to keep your natural hair and your synthetic fiber elastic, to keep it flexible so that it doesn't get dry in a way. Dry with natural hair means that there is no fat production anymore. And it is very important to take a traditional soap, a pure soap, to re-fat the hair after usage and after cleaning, especially if you use solvents to clean the hair. So you have to re-fat the natural hair to keep it elastic. And this, strangely enough, this re-fatting soaps, these pure soaps, are also, in our experience, very good to keep synthetic fiber elastic. Whether this is the fact or not, I cannot tell you really, but it's really, really good to wash it out like this way. But as important is to wash all the material out of the ferrule end and out of the material itself.
Okay. So are you saying that after you've washed your brushes, you mentioned keeping them wet? I mean, are you obviously not actually physically keeping the brushes wet, but are you basically soaking them in something or putting them, or leaving soap over the top of them?
You wash them out with the soap until really there is no dirt coming out anymore. And then you bring them in the original shape again. And then you either lie them down or you have a device to hang them down so that the water can drop out. But the important is not to put them on radiators or not to use hair dryers to dry them, because then, of course, this is first not good for the fibers. And secondly, if there is too much temperature, it can lead that the wooden handle shrinks and takes the water, and then the brush is tending to maybe, you know what I mean?
The ferrule sort of becomes loose on the hand.
Wobbling. So just put it down to dry on a piece of cloth or hang it down. That's the perfect thing. And then bring it in the original shape, because the hair always wants to go back into its original shape.
Okay. Are you putting anything on the brush to store it, like I don't know, sort of tip restorers or waxes or something like that, or are you just leaving them as sort of, you finish your cleaning process and then you let them drip dry and you're done?
You can use gum arabic as we are doing for the transport.
Mm-hmm.
Some people use a little sugar water, which has the same effect. Some people just put it through their mouth and then hang it down. I mean, there are several ideas to do that. But the main thing is, don't let it dry in a bad way. Let it dry in the way the brush should be after you want to use it again. That's very important.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I fully understand. When it comes to the differences between synthetic and sable, is that something you're seeing a shift towards? And when obviously people are becoming more sort of environmentally friendly, they're becoming more animal welfare conscious, that sort of thing. Are you seeing more of a pushback against sable? I mean, even I am probably more of I would rather use synthetic given a choice, but sable massively outperforms synthetic still. You still can't get the same results that I've seen with a synthetic brush. Are you finding that sort of like a general trend of pushback from your customers, or I
changed in 1985. I told you that I started then. Our company sold maybe about 80% natural hair brushes and 20% synthetic brushes.
Mm-hmm.
If I look at it today, I would guess quantity-wise, we are selling now over 80% synthetic brushes, and maybe the rest is natural hair brushes. So the market has already changed dramatically. in markets like the cosmetic brushes, it's nearly 100% synthetic now. It's the natural hair is nearly gone. In the artist brushes, it's a more conservative market. People love what they have started their career with. They tend to use all their lives. If you talk to a restorer who put out his trade with the same brush, he will tending to work with the same brush all his life because he's used to his tool, and his tool is very important for him. But it's clearly a trend to the synthetic fibers, and we have always been trying hard to develop, as people who know our company have always seen that we have been trying very, very hard to imitate with synthetic fiber the natural hair as much as possible. But on the other side, also the pride of brush making in our town was the natural hair. This is where we come from. So we are still dressing the hair. We are still having the natural alternatives. Also, the market share and also the availability of the natural hair. And of course, availability, the pricing has been going really up so that more and more people are trying to use synthetic fibers. That's in the app.
Perfect. Okay. So
when you said environmentally friendly, I mean there is also the discussion synthetic fiber is plastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to say one way or another.
It's a long discussion on the other side, I know, but of course now with all the developments, the Kolinsky hair brushes are still available, especially from our company. But of course, the market share is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah. What sort of innovations are coming down the pipeline? I mean, you mentioned you're innovating in terms of synthetics and things like that. What other innovations are coming down the pipeline that people may be interested in? Is it just an iterative process that's going on, or is there some sort of step change that's going to come in the technology wrapped around maybe synthetics?
Over the last 10 years, we have been trying very hard, as I said, to get better and better in synthetic fibers. And I mean, synthetic fibers or the right word is tapered synthetic filament, is a patent which was coming out of the 50s and then was developed in Japan mainly from two companies. Now that the patent is over and there is straight tapered filament in all kind of millimeters, then there is now lately also wavy synthetic filament, which is giving then a more softer approach to the filament. And of course, we as brush makers, our task is to, regarding our thinking, what are the perfect imitations of a squirrel hair brush, of a sable hair brush, of a hawk hair, of a bristle. So this is all what we try in several and different mixtures. And I say maybe, especially in the watercolor area, we have a line called Kazaneo, which means new Kazan squirrel hair. That means that's why the name Kazaneo was made. And Kolineo means new Kolinsky hair. It's a mixture of 5 different fibers in different lengths, different producers mixed together to get as close as possible to the sable hair, which has a very, very fine tip, which is quite elastic and keeps a good amount of water. If you only use the wavy fiber for the squirrel hair imitation, there is much more water holding capacity, but the tip and the elasticity are not quite the same as in a Kolinsky brush, like in the natural hairs also. So we do look very, very carefully into the material and try to get as close as possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I've seen those brushes. They look like they've received some good feedback. I haven't used them, but they look like they've received some really good feedback.
They received very good feedback. We are very happy with the comments, because it took us nearly 2 years to get this mixture done. But of course, there's one thing which will never not change right now. synthetic fiber is a piece of plastic which was then put out of a certain machine. So it has not the natural construction as a hair has. If you look at the hair under a microscope, it's a piece of art. And there is lots of places where water can be kept and where capillarity, like Leonardo da Vinci has also described as the first gentleman, which gives the brush the perfect, performance.
Yeah.
And of course, we try to imitate this with different lengths and with different fiber mixtures. But the basic material is still a little bit different.
We have exciting. As ever, I think it's just a case of balancing new technology coming in and heritage from the past and just working out. No one's perfect with this sort of stuff, but it's exciting. I'm optimistic about the future anyway. So it's just
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what you say is quite important, and it's one of our sayings: tradition and innovation. That's what we try to live. We have. I told you before that the brush maker goes to school. We have more or less 2 factories under one roof, where we make brushes like 100 years ago by hand. But on the other side, all our cool and cheaper synthetic brushes we make by machines we are developing ourselves, where we also imitate the work of the hand just to be also competitive and give a very good price quality relation with these kind of products.
Do you make brushes for other people? For example, if I wanted to make a line of Rising 8 brushes, could I reach out to you and say, hi, I would love you to make me a brush? You've mentioned you make bespoke brushes for artists and stuff like that. Is that a possible thing, or is that just you're only allowed to do that if you're, I don't know, very, very famous, like a David Hockney or someone like that,
Of course, our main aim is to sell DaVinci brushes. That's our trademark. But I would not say that we also do so-called private label brushes.
Okay.
And we understand ourselves as a brush company who is making brushes for other people. So it's also possible that we do the changed wire brush, whatever. I don't know what kind of hairs you would love or what kind of shape you prefer. Yeah, we always try to help. No question.
Cool. That's exciting to know too, though. That's exciting to know too. A couple of silly questions to wrap up the interview. Then we'll close up. It's I think you've already alluded to this. Do you lick your brush when you're painting yourself? Do you lick your brush?
You mean this to the movement?
Yeah.
Well, me personally, I don't, but of course I know that many people are doing this, especially restorers, especially in other areas also.
But no, that's fine.
It's not surprising for me if somebody is doing it, because it's the quickest way to get the brush shape into the shape again.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
I agree.
Whether you find this nice or not,
it's up to you. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Last question. If you had to tell someone one tip that will improve the way they use your brushes, what would you tell them?
Well, always be careful with the brush tip. Don't transport brushes so that the tip is getting damaged or is pushing to a stronger thing. And wash them out carefully, always from the ferrule onwards. I think this is very important. One more point, and I think this is what people try or sometimes forget. And if you compare it maybe to a car, if you have new tires and you do a kickstart at the lights, of course the profile from your tires will go down very, very quickly. If you work very dry with a Kolinsky brush on a rough surface and you really scrabble, of course the tips will go faster away than if you work with more color and more liquid on a surface like this. So think about also your movements of your hands when you are working, whether you might also be a little bit too rough on your brush head.
Perfect. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Listen, I just want to say, just thank you for doing the interview. I am deeply, deeply grateful. And like I say, I'm absolutely loving using your brushes at the moment. They're fantastic. And I just, wish you all the best success. That's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And of course, we are always open to listen. If there are any ideas, if there are new projects coming, or if we have to improve something, we are here to learn. We try to make the best tool also for that market. That's pretty clear.